My name is Jennifer Chin, and this is the story of how my in-laws learned the hard way that treating family like outsiders can have serious consequences. People often underestimate the quiet ones, but as you'll see, that's a mistake. I met David Wong in my final year of computer engineering. He was ambitious, charismatic, and seemed different from his traditionally minded Chinese family. We fell in love fast, and despite his parents' initial skepticism about my mixed heritage, David reassured me that he would stand by our relationship. I believed him until reality set in. At first, the issues were subtle. My mother-in-law, Lisa Wong, would make offhanded remarks about my looks, my cooking, and most of all, my career. A good Chinese wife stays home to care for her family, she would remind me at our weekly family dinners, her disapproval obvious. My father-in-law, Richard Wong, took a different approach. He simply acted like I didn't exist. I tolerated their treatment because David, in his own quiet way, would try to defend me. But everything changed when I got pregnant. The Wongs owned Wong Technologies, a mid-sized tech firm struggling to stay afloat. Richard's outdated leadership and refusal to adapt had caused the company to lose ground to younger, more innovative competitors. David, as the vice president of operations, constantly tried to push for modernization while trying to win his father's approval. What no one, including David, knew was that I had been building something of my own. Over the 5 years of our marriage, I had secretly launched a tech startup specializing in AI-driven supply chain optimization. Operating under my maiden name and a network of shell companies, I had kept my growing success entirely separate from my personal life. My company, NextGen Solutions, had rapidly become one of the most successful firms in the industry. I never intended to use my success against my in-laws. In fact, I had even considered helping Wong Technologies once my company was firmly established, but circumstances forced my hand. The turning point came when Wong Technologies was on the verge of a critical merger, one that could save them from collapse. Richard planned a high-stakes family dinner to impress potential investors. I was 3 months pregnant at the time. The day before the dinner, my mother-in-law called. "Jennifer," she said, her voice dripping with false concern. "About tomorrow's dinner, we decided it would be best if you didn't come." I tightened my grip on the phone. "Excuse me?" Well, in traditional Chinese culture, pregnant women are considered unlucky in business matters. We simply can't take any risks. I'm sure you understand. I was speechless. "Did you talk to David about this?" "Of course, he agrees. It's for the best. Family comes first, after all." My heart sank. My husband hadn't even warned me. That evening, when David got home, I confronted him. "Your mom called me." He loosened his tie, avoiding my gaze. "Look, it's just one dinner. Dad's under a lot of stress, and if Mom thinks your presence might make the investors uncomfortable." "Do you even hear yourself?" I cut in. "You're letting them exclude your wife, your pregnant wife, over some ridiculous superstition." David sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Please, Jen, don't make this harder than it needs to be. It's just business." I stared at him. "Just business. Fine, I'll stay home." Relief washed over his face, completely oblivious to the steel in my voice. "Thanks for understanding, honey. I'll make it up to you." That night, as David slept soundly beside me, I made some calls. As the CEO of NextGen Solutions, I had access to information my in-laws couldn't even imagine. Within hours, I knew everything about their potential merger, including the weak points Richard hoped no one would notice. The next morning, I kissed David goodbye as he left for work. Then, I went to my home office and got to work. The investors Wong Technologies was courting were known for their traditional beliefs, exactly why my mother-in-law wanted me out of the picture. But they were also ruthlessly practical. I spent the day making strategic calls and sending carefully crafted emails. By the time the Wong's grand dinner began, I had orchestrated a devastating shift. NextGen Solutions had just placed a competing bid for the company Wong Technologies was trying to merge with, one that outshined Richard's offer in every way. But I wasn't finished. I reached out to Wong Technologies' biggest clients, many of whom had already started quietly working with NextGen on the side. By midnight, when David returned home smelling of wine and celebration, 3 of Wong Technologies' top 5 clients had secretly agreed to transition their business to NextGen within the next quarter. "How was dinner?" I asked sweetly as he loosened his tie. Perfect, he beamed, unaware of the storm brewing. The investors loved us. Dad's confident the merger will be finalized by next week. I smiled, thinking about the emails waiting in Richard's inbox. That's wonderful, honey. I'm so happy for you. David kissed my forehead. Thanks for being so understanding. Mom was right. Everything went smoothly without any complications. I placed a hand on my stomach, feeling a small flutter. Yes, keeping complications away does make things easier. For now. As David drifted into a peaceful sleep, I lay awake, watching the clock. In 6 hours, Richard Wong would walk into his office and realize his deal had collapsed overnight. In 7 hours, he would learn that his most valuable clients were abandoning ship. And in 8 hours, he would discover exactly who had orchestrated his downfall. People underestimate the quiet ones. My in-laws were about to learn that lesson in the most brutal way possible. But this was only the beginning. The real reckoning would happen at the emergency board meeting the next morning, where the truth about more than just business would come to light. By the time I arrived at Wong Technologies headquarters, dressed in a sharply tailored maternity suit that blended power with grace, David had already been summoned by his father. He'd assumed it was for paperwork. He had no idea he was walking into a disaster of my making. I waited precisely 2 hours before making my entrance, long enough for Richard to grasp what had happened, but not long enough for him to formulate a response. Timing is everything. In both business and revenge. My phone buzzed nonstop. First, a message from David. Dad's losing it. Something's wrong with the merger. Clients are pulling out. Emergency board meeting in 2 hours. Don't worry, I'll handle it. Then from Lisa Wong. This is all your fault. I had a feeling this would happen. You brought bad fortune into this family, David. Before you came, we never had any misfortune. I smirked at that remark. They hadn't seen what real misfortune looked like yet. The security guard at W Technologies recognized me as David's wife and let me through without an appointment. Just another flaw in Richard's leadership. Weak security measures. I took the elevator to the top floor, where a board meeting was already underway. I could hear the yelling before I even reached the door. How could this fall apart overnight? Richard's voice thundered. Yesterday, they were ready to sign the deal. The offer from NextGen was too good to compete with, someone else explained. We couldn't match their technology or terms. NextGen? I've never heard of them. That was my cue. I pushed open the door. Inside, it was pure chaos. Richard stood at the head of the table, fuming. David, sitting nearby, looked dazed, his tie hanging loose. The board members, all friends of Richard's, sat looking distressed. My mother-in-law was off to the side, clutching her expensive handbag as if it could protect her. You've heard of them now, I said softly but clearly enough for the whole room to hear. All eyes turned to me. David sprang to his feet. Jen, what are you doing here? Mrs. Doe, Richard sneered. This is a private board meeting. Family members aren't allowed. I smiled, pulling out a folder from my briefcase. Actually, I'm here as the CEO of NextGen Solutions. I believe you've been trying to reach me all morning. The silence that followed was deafening. David's face drained of color. Richard's mouth opened and closed, struggling for words. My mother-in-law dropped her hand back. That's impossible, Richard finally stammered. NextGen's run by someone named Jennifer Chen. That's my maiden name, I explained as I took a seat at the table. I never changed it in business. It's amazing what people assume when they don't dig deeper. You're the one who sabotaged our merger, David whispered. The same way you wrecked my self-respect last night, I replied, turning to face him. Yes, sweetheart. Turns out pregnant women aren't so unlucky after all. Just ask the investors, well, my investors now. My mother-in-law found her voice. You deceitful little. Careful, Lisa, I warned, cutting her off. You might want to hear my offer before you finish that sentence. I began handing out documents from my folder to the board members. Wong Technologies is on the brink of collapse. Your major clients are leaving. Your merger's fallen through. And your technology is outdated compared to the competition, my competition. But I'm offering you a lifeline. Richard's face went from red to purple. We don't need your handouts. This isn't charity, I continued, unfazed. It's business. NextGen will buy W Technologies at a fair price. All employees will keep their jobs, but there will be some changes in leadership. You can't do this, My mother-in-law shrieked. This company is our family's heritage. I stood slowly, resting a hand on my visible baby bump. Family? Last night, you said I wasn't family. You excluded me from dinner because I'm pregnant. You've treated me like an outsider for years. Now, you'll know what it's like to be on the outside. The board members were already flipping through the documents, murmuring amongst themselves. They could see the numbers. Good technologies wouldn't survive without my deal. David finally spoke, his voice trembling. Why didn't you tell me? The same reason you didn't tell me about last night's dinner, I said. It's just business, right? One of the board members cleared his throat. Mr. Wong, this offer is generous, more than fair, considering our current situation. Richard slumped back in his chair, defeated. How long have you been planning this? I wasn't planning anything, I replied. I built my company from the ground up with hard work and innovation, things you could have had if you'd looked past your old-fashioned ways. I would have gladly helped modernize Wong Technologies if you'd ever seen me as more than just David's unfortunate wife. I addressed the board members. The offer is good for 24 hours. I recommend you think carefully. Unlike some, I don't let superstition get in the way of business. As I turned to leave, David grabbed my arm. Jen, wait, we can talk. I gently pulled his hand away. Yes, we do need to talk, but not here. I'll be at home when you're ready to discuss our future, both personal and professional. My mother-in-law made one last attempt. You'll regret this. No one who betrays family finds happiness. I paused at the door. You taught me that family is more than blood or marriage. It's about respect, understanding, and support. Tomorrow, I'll be your boss. Whether I remain your daughter-in-law depends on what happens when David comes home tonight. The aftermath of the fallout was both better and worse than I imagined. The board accepted my offer without a fight. They didn't have a choice. Richard retired early, unwilling to work for his daughter-in-law. My mother-in-law stopped attending family gatherings, always claiming she was too sick when I was there. David surprised me. After hours of tough conversations that night, he finally realized the depth of hurt his family had caused me. He decided to stay, both in our marriage and at the company, working under my leadership. It took time, but he learned to stand up to his parents, especially after our daughter was born. Today, Wong Technologies is just a name in old business records. Next Gen Solutions is one of the leading tech companies in the country. Richard and Lisa are still adjusting to their new reality, but they've learned to keep their superstitions quiet, especially around their granddaughter. As for me, I kept my maiden name and my role as CEO. My daughter will grow up knowing that her mother never needed anyone's permission to sit at the table, any table, and if someone tries to keep her out, she'll know exactly what to do, build her own table, better and bigger than theirs. The company's annual family dinner is next week. Everyone's invited, even my in-laws. Assuming they're not too superstitious to attend a dinner hosted by their pregnant daughter-in-law. Yes, we're expecting another child. And this time, no one dares to call it bad luck. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't about defeating your enemies. It's about succeeding so grandly that they have no choice but to watch from the sidelines, regretting every time they underestimated you. And if they're wise, they might just learn something about family, respect, and the true meaning of good fortune. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Stay stunned.